It's the One Podcast.
We can't really help somebody if they're saying, I want you to show investors why my business is actually a $5 million company. That's really not the business we're in and not the business we want to be. I know I need to learn how to better talk with investors and figure out what they'd be looking for. There's plenty of great startups. We work with people that are actively looking for that feedback and advice.
Are you ready?
Okay, guys, so we got another One Podcast here today with Jason. We haven't had too many people involved in the overall startup kind of VC ecosystem. Jason's been super involved in that. So I think it's going to be super useful to people who are starting companies and looking to get into accelerators and that sort of world rather than bootstrapped. Jason, do you just want to give a quick background on Prepare for VC and everything that you've been doing recently?
Yeah, great to be on here. Thanks for having me on the podcast. And yeah, really excited to get in front of your community here. So at Prepare for VC, our focus is really supporting early stage entrepreneurs through the whole early stage journey. That's the go-to-market and growth strategy, fundraising, and how you go beyond the fundraise and build up your team and your product and your vision to really support that growth for the long term. So my personal background is in both the venture investment space as well as the startup space, being a co-founder on a few financial technology ventures. And yeah, now I'm here helping other startup entrepreneurs build their dreams and build their businesses.
Cool. So, Jason, the question that we ask everybody is, obviously you have founded several companies. It's a startup kind of ecosystem company, but I guess did you always see yourself as kind of like a business founder, entrepreneur type person, or when does that kind of come into play?
Yeah, I think I always had the mindset, but I didn't necessarily think of it as a career path. Like even playing games as a kid, I'd make up my own rules and create a new game out of something. And I used to sell like buy baseball cards and Pokemon cards and stuff and sell them to other kids in school. But yeah, I always thought an entrepreneur, I didn't really know entrepreneur was necessarily a career, just that, not that it is or isn't, but that
Right.
you can go, yeah, you go to college, you go get a job, and then that's what you do. But I think I was actually going down the finance investment path, and I interned at a couple wealth management and investment firms throughout college, and then wanted to go to grad school to really continue and dive deeper into the field. And so I went to Babson College for a master's in management program. And the school is really focused on entrepreneurship. And originally going into it, thought that this would help me be more entrepreneurial within other organizations, but got involved, I think on both sides. On the investment side, got involved with an angel group and helping out running their meetings and taking notes on all the companies that were pitching, and got to learn a lot about all the startups that were presenting and also how investors were thinking about like choosing the next big opportunity that looking there several years down the road at what things could look like. And yeah, that got me really excited and interested in both the startup and the venture space.
Yeah, we interviewed a couple of people who've been student entrepreneurs, and I'm a guy who, that's how I got into entrepreneurship, was in college through the program. So it's interesting you bring that up as something that was a factor in you at least getting that interest. I guess, what was the first company or kind of organization that you actually built out?
Yeah, actually, the first kind of technology or the first app, wasn't even really a full company at the time, was actually in college. I went to Colgate in upstate New York for undergrad, and it was really cold in the winters. Wanted to know what was going on downtown before we decided whether or not to go out junior, senior year, I decided on building an app called Night Owl where everybody could share on campus what things are going on and who's going out where and see where to go at night. So found a freelance developer and overseas in India to like help create it. And I didn't really know enough about entrepreneurship at the time. What I had was really what we call it the minimal viable product, MVP,
Sure.
that you then go out to test and get feedback and use to like build the next version.
Okay.
But I think I learned enough that it
Show
got
you
the
kind of how the process works, and you know what I'm saying, to
exactly.
it just, and I guess further, like what it's sort of that helps you carve out your niche as far as like working with startups later on, because you can
That was the
understand
first
that
kind of
process.
lean into entrepreneurship. And the other ventures, a couple years later, there was one in the or they actually kind of led into each other. There was one I co-founded in the crowdfunding space, basically as now or since 20, which was just about when we launched, there was the Jobs Act came out, which let anybody invest through crowdfunding platforms into startup companies. You didn't have to be an accredited investor through those platforms. And we were analyzing like all 25 sites at the time to aggregate and help investors figure out what investments to go into. So that was the first official startup. But it took some of the experiences there and from the investment groups that had been involved in help build that company.
When you were doing that first company, uh, even before starting in 2016 with Accelerator, did you ever consider bootstrapping, or were you always thinking about things through this kind of like VC fundraising lens?
Yeah, I think actually, so we were bootstrapping. We actually used, and the software has come a long way, but we used for that crowdfunding company, we used a software called Bubble, which was like a no code application. So
Yeah, we talked a lot about that recently.
I think you still have to figure out, like, if you put everything on the screen, what goes to what and builds kind of the workflow and the systems. But we didn't have to learn how to code to actually create it. So I think that helps really think through a lot of the processes you want to have in place, even if you're going to have somebody go fully build out something for you. Just going through that exercise of what do we want this to look like and what do we want certain things to trigger in other areas of the site.
Sure.
I think the biggest piece though, like, was so this company actually transformed into a second venture where it was relatively slow start. We were out there testing the market, getting feedback from people, but it was still all the crowdfunding sites didn't have a lot of traffic themselves at the time. So it's still something new people were learning about.
Right.
What we actually figured was a bigger market at the time was the crypto space. There were a lot of initial coin offerings and there was, new tokens coming out were becoming really popular. So we took the same kind of network and framework and applied it to the cryptocurrency markets, analyzing different new deals that were coming out. And the thing with that helped us a lot at the beginning was there was a lot of market buzz at the time. We started a blockchain meetup group, and without much marketing, like 100+ people showed up to the first event. And everybody really wanted to be in that space at the time, but then also led to a little bit more regulatory pushback and changes, especially in Massachusetts, where companies were becoming crypto companies just because it was cool and popular and they thought they could get easy funding. Yeah. I think there's positives and negatives in any waves of innovation that come. But yeah, I think both of those I'd say any startup you do, whether it's a success itself or not, you learn a lot that kind of informs the next ventures and helps you also figure out what works and what doesn't work, in anything you're a part of. Right?
So, what's your business model with that company? Like, how are you bringing in revenue? You know what I'm saying? What does the actual business model work?
Sure. With Prepare for VC. Yeah, basically we have really two sides. We have more sponsorship driven revenue. So working with like corporates or other groups that their client base is entrepreneurs. So those could be law firms, banks, technology platforms, consulting groups that either sponsor events we do, help sponsor our cohort, and especially like the demo day pitch events at the end of the program. And then we have the founder support where there's either project-based consulting we're offering or more of a course model to join some of our programs. So we offer on the founder side, we have like free offerings that are more sponsor driven and then low cost monthly and more course based accelerator programs and more customized consulting offerings, either directly from us or from a network of other mentors and advisors that we work with. And everything from a lot of our internal work is on the fundraising side. And then, yeah, we have advisors and consultants for everything from like sales strategy, marketing and branding and IP advice and things like that as well.
Got it. So you have like a number of different products that you're offering. So how quickly you mentioned like that event where hopping on that blockchain train, like how quick is it for you to like actually build up like a repeatable, not a scalable, but just like a regular audience and customers? Like how difficult was it for you to make this a sustainable business?
Yeah. So actually, I started, yeah, our team like jokes that it started as Jason as a service. And it
Nice.
was really just me. I use some of the freelance sites. I was on like Upwork and other channels at the beginning,
Yeah.
trying to just join different projects and was out there at a lot of the meetup and event groups, just meeting other founders and seeing where I could help out the most. And
Sure.
started mostly with a lot of pitch deck and presentation work and expanded over the years. And I think our big expansion as the team grew was like back in 2020 when we decided to launch more of these group and cohort based programs. And that became more of the flagship model that we're built
Which is
around
what
now.
people prefer anyway, because it's, you know what I'm saying? Like it gives them that structure and that reason to like invest in their own companies.
Yeah, I think it's the big benefit is we're able to work with and support more founders, but they're also able to learn not just from like us, but from each other in the group and see there's somebody else that's going through the same thing at the same time as them and
Sure.
sharing, yeah, what works and doesn't work between them. So I think, yeah, that's definitely been really effective. And part of it too is we're also bringing in some components that we didn't necessarily have to build ourselves, like our community. Like I've been a chapter director for our local startup grind chapter and got to meet a lot of great entrepreneurs through that. And then a few years ago, we also took over, Prepare for VC took over as the operators and organizers of a large community called Boston New Technology. And that's where we host a lot of our events and both meetup and larger, more conference style events, and also get in front of and meet a lot of great entrepreneurs and figure out where we can better support them as well.
Nice.
So yeah, not everything has to be like things you create from scratch. It can be either partners or other communities you can be a part of and join as well.
Just like relying on that network or using that network to make things easier to build or create some of the value.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So what, in terms of like the companies that come through to like the program, and I know this is like a hard question to ask, but uh, I'm just curious your perspective on it because you obviously see so many startups on a yearly basis, but how many of them, like how long have you been doing prepare for VC now? Roughly almost 10 years or
Yeah, 8 years.
yeah. How many of the people that come through the program are working on the same company in 5 years or are still entrepreneurs, which is more important question, I think. But I don't know if you track that type of information, but as a broad kind of idea, what do you say there?
Yeah, I think most are still entrepreneurs is really probably 90 something percent.
Yeah.
But the same idea, I think even in the same business, it's most of them have changed a lot along the way. Those could be pivots within the company. There's been some that are on their next venture, whether or not the thing is, yeah, whether or not the first one is successful that you're involved in, there's a higher success rate. If you look at startups in general, second time founders that have learned from the experiences the first time are more successful the second time. So what we do actually is, yeah, we do look at more of the founders that have graduated versus the startups themselves. Somebody we worked with several
Each of
years.
them versus, yeah, like a sort of, I guess, the accelerator model of a lot of like, the major companies like is more we're trying to get this business, invest in it, right, and profit, make some
Yeah.
money on it. Whereas you're thinking about it more in terms of like the entrepreneur and just like building them into a
I mean,
better
we do
network.
have like plenty of startups that have grown a lot since, we have some that are on their whatever late stage financing rounds and have pretty high revenue since they've joined our programs, and that's great. And we have other founders that they figured out, hey, my skill sets are better for this other startup and I can take everything and I have a bigger vision. I want to go build somewhere else. And that's also great. Like they figured something out that works better in the long term.
And for do you think about what factors contribute to people not having success with their venture? Or I wouldn't say failing, right? Because most people pivot their way out of like the failure, but for those 10% that maybe stop being entrepreneurs, have you thought about like what factors go into that?
Yeah, I think so. First, even the fact of working with whatever, any accelerator, consulting group, or seeking help is a big filter in terms of there's definitely plenty of entrepreneurs or people that want to be entrepreneurs that aren't actually looking for feedback and advice and looking to change the way they or looking
They're
to
kind of
learn.
stir,
Like,
they're like, yeah,
yeah, the example we use a lot is if somebody comes and they're, if we're talking the fundraising side, we can't really help somebody if they're coming in and saying, I want you to show investors why my business is it's actually what should be a $5 million company. It's just having somebody kind of beef things up for you. And that's really not the business we're in and not the business we want to be in. It's more somebody coming to us and saying, I know I need to learn like how to value my company. I know I need to learn how to better talk and communicate with investors and figure out what they'd be looking for, how we can have a good deal together. And there's plenty of great startups we've worked with. And that's our kind of core audience is people that are actively like looking for that feedback and advice and ready to implement it into their company.
do most of the companies that go through, do they go on to raise money? Is that like necessity or?
It's a mix. Yeah, definitely had a good number, either from some go directly to angel groups and venture funds, in pre-seed. Series A is we focus on mostly pre-seed and seed, and others will also go into another investing or an investing accelerator after. So we've had some of our alumni come out and go into the Techstars and Generator and some of the other accelerator programs. And then we've also had companies figure out like their big change in the program. And this is why we used to call it just the accelerator. Now we call it our breakthrough, is they have these breakthrough moments where they figure out we were actually trying to go in this direction and use a business model that might not have been working. And if we do this one small change and change the pricing or change the audience that we're going after, it can make a huge transition in the company, and we can bootstrap a little bit more and actually build up a strong business before we go out and decide to fundraise down the road.
Got it. So what have you found to be like the biggest factor in these companies' success? Is something related to the founders, to their selected sort of business, the team? Is there anything that like you really tie back? Obviously, people always say, "Oh, the team is everything," and whatnot with respect to fundraising, but just in general, in terms of which companies wind up being profitable and etc. What do you have any kind of observations from that being like the accelerators involved with them?
Yeah, the team is definitely key. But there's you have to be really passionate about this because you are putting a lot more it's not a typical job. You are putting a lot more time and energy and getting less short-term returns for it. So yeah, the team, the founders, but also anybody else they bring in has to be really excited and passionate about the cause they're building for as well. I think one of the big things we like to emphasize is getting out there and getting feedback as early on. Like I think what can hold founders back is if you're just tinkering and trying to make something really perfect before you let anybody see it. And most, the really successful companies we've worked with have just been out there like getting advice, talking to their customers as early as possible and using that feedback to inform how they grow and scale their company.
Got it. Just for you, what are your goals for the business, and or what have your goals been, and how has like your experience lined up like running this type of business?
Yeah, I think there's two pieces. There's the impact side. I think we always get really excited every time either a alumni company or a startup we're working with has a big announcement on LinkedIn or sends us an email with good news on either their customer growth, their fundraising rounds, or they've been featured in other publications. And yeah, our team always celebrates those wins along with the startups. And then as prepare for VC, I think our focus has been how do we built a lot of great components from the courses and the curriculum to our network and community. And it's how do we use that momentum to continue growing and be the major provider for early stage startup education. There's a few areas we're looking to expand there, and we've been working on some as kind of leading more programming under other organizations where we come in as more of a partner and facilitator under them. And there's a couple of our first programs like that we're doing right now. And then just continuing building our pipeline of eager founders that are looking to really build that momentum in their company, learn and scale from our network of mentors and facilitators, and continue having great companies we work with and build that up and have even more success stories down the road.
In terms of the like community building and stuff like that, are there any like technologies that you use that have been like very influential, like Slack or, you know what I'm saying, different types of group software?
Yeah, we definitely we use Slack both for the team and then also for other startups we're working with. communicate back and forth. We used a couple different community platforms. Like we're on one now called Ecos, which basically you can host, it's an event management. You can also live stream on there, and then you can have the community members meet and interact and match with each other as well. And yeah, I think, there's a lot of really cool new ones coming out too. There's
Yeah.
a startup that we were working with too called Osmos that, you get a new match every week and you can, meet other people in the community. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah, depending on what, you need most as a founder, as a community builder now, like there's plenty of great
Yeah.
new technologies. And yeah, it's really exciting to see.
And then what type of, to get like kind of new clients and people on the accelerator, like what type of marketing are you doing or sales work? Obviously, content stuff is key, LinkedIn, but you want to kind of get in a little more depth on that.
Yeah, we're doing LinkedIn's our biggest social channel
Sure.
because we're working with businesses. We're doing content in terms of like blog posts and articles. We're also, we do a lot of events and we're also partnering. I think one of the big partnerships we started last year is working with the TechCrunch conference. So we partner up as a marketing partner for the early stage Boston conference and on the Disrupt conference in San Francisco, and met a ton of entrepreneurs at both of those events. And yeah, conferences have been a big component, but we're selective too, knowing basically, I think the big thing is if you're going back to back conferences throughout the year, you also have to have the bandwidth to manage all the new contacts. So for us, it's being strategic about this is our thing for the month or the next 2 months. We're using as our major component to meet new people. And then we have to have enough time to also dedicate to actually following up and making the most of to those interactions.
Do you feel you're in competition with these larger accelerators, or you were mentioning how companies go to Techstars like after going through your program? But do you feel like you're competing with them in certain ways?
It's a mix. I think one of the things is there's or one of the challenges I think we're trying to address in the startup space overall is there's there's big, if we talk about accelerators and pre-seed in general, like accelerator is a pretty wide range of where the startup actually is. The stage in terms of, are you late idea stage or you have a company that's out there with early revenues on the market, and there's accelerators that address each of those. Positioning where we want to be positioned in regards to other programs is one aspect. And then even helping the founders figure out what's a successful path for them. Because there's plenty of entrepreneurs we worked with that have also been through a number of programs. And if you're making
They go through all of them. I got it.
Yeah. I would just say, you want to make sure like you're not making a lateral move, you're going to that next stage and keep growing.
Would you what in terms of pre-funded startups, they're sort of notorious for being not cheap necessarily, but not like having a ton of money to spend on different things. Obviously the business is not a charity, right? Do you recommend people or like for an entrepreneur who's is interested in the entrepreneurship startup community, do you recommend like starting a business similar to yours that like services that community, like an accelerator or something? Like, do you find that to be like an easier, obviously it's a rewarding business model, but would you recommend that to someone else, or how would you talk somebody through that as a type of business?
Yeah, I think it has to leverage your own experiences and also your own, or you're looking to differentiate in the market. So it's how can you leverage your own background and experiences, but also create it in a way that is different from other programs? Or as, for example, is more emphasis on really understanding on the fundraising side, it's more emphasis on understanding what is an investor's mindset, what does the pipeline
Right,
for
of
them
course.
look like, and
That's
how do
your
they
kind of
yeah. How do
positioning.
they choose the deals they go into? For somebody else with a different background, it would be a different program, and you have to market it and build it to
Yeah.
that audience.
And you have that local component as well, which I think, because we're building this community right around people like building micro businesses and starting. We have like a Discord community where people are like building things together. But just like looking at your business, like I see, number one, you have the local environment, which helps you from a networking connection standpoint because you can corner all these groups. And then, of course, just like startups in general, like it's such a big need, right? To prepare, like it's literally in the name.
Right.
And it's just like an inherent need for every single startup ever. And it's not something where you are competing like tit for tat with another accelerator because they could do multiple ones in succession and they could pivot. So for me, it makes sense as like a really solid business. And I think there's a big need for it. Jason, where can people find you and what's the latest sort of, is there like an accelerator coming up or something that people should be looking out for?
Sure. Yeah. So where to find me? I have my personal sites, Jason Kraus, me. Happy to connect on LinkedIn too. And then our Prepare for VC site is prepare with the number 4.com. I'm sorry, prepareforvc.com.
VC.
Yeah, VC for venture capital. And yeah, we do have another breakthrough. So our current program's going through the end of March, and we're going to start end of April, beginning of May program right after that. Yeah, you can already apply on the website or check out. We also have our earlier stage course called The Catalyst that's ongoing and open for entry as well.
Cool. Yeah, we may. I'll plug those things in the links, obviously, but also in the community too for people. And that's not just local, right? That could be anybody.
Yeah, that can be anybody. It's
Perfect. Yeah.
It's virtual, and then there's an in-person pitch event at the end of the program.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's an experience that even if people are not going like the VC route, I feel like the pitching experience, just like understanding that is, you need to understand that pathway. But in any case, Jason, thank you for coming on. This is the one.